Okay, so we're back, except this time we have the right video title. We got everybody here finally, and I'm excited to do a random map scripting workshop with you guys. So I got a couple people here in real time to say, "Hey, Tech, slow down and explain what this means." So the idea is we're going to show you guys what you need, start to finish, to learn how to make some very basic random map scripts for Age of Empires 2. So I've said this before, and I'll say it again for this video. Random map scripting is very simple to learn, but very difficult to master. So if you put something into a random map script and it doesn't make sense, it'll just ignore it. It won't throw an error. It won't say failed to compile. It'll just not generate something, which can be both good and bad, because if you have a wrong line of code, it'll just ignore it and do everything else and still generate what you need. But on the other hand, it can make it hard to figure out why something's not working because it doesn't throw you an error message. So in order to do this, we're going to need a couple of things. The first thing that we're going to need, and I have linked the Discord for this community in the description of the video. Go check that out. But we need to be in the random map scripting server. This is the place to be. Right here, I'm going to share it on my screen. So right up here where it says RMS resources, there's a channel here where you can go, and there's all kinds of stuff that people have put together. This server is absolutely awesome because it's literally made by the community. So the documentation from the developers on this has been kind of spotty, but it's actually been members of the community. They've gone in, dissected it, picked it all apart, experimented with things, and determined how stuff works. So the major documents that we're going to need are, we're going to need this constants list for DE right here. This constant list is going to give us a list of every single object in the game, from gold to archers to relics to forage bushes to deer to fish. You name it, it's all in there. You need to know what those objects are if you are going to be able to define them in your script, because the RMS parser is very stupid, and it's not going to be able to intelligently interpret what you want. You got to actually physically put either a predefined term in there, which this spreadsheet will give you, or the number of the actual object, which is even better. So go get this constant list for DE. You can download it as an ODS or a spreadsheet, and ultimately it comes from the in-game Advanced Genie editor, which is kind of like the brain behind how Age of Empires works. So the community basically went and picked that apart and got all the information and summarized it in that spreadsheet. The other thing you're going to need is the DE scripting guide. This is the encyclopedia written by a friend of mine called Zetnus. He keeps it up to date after every new patch. And this is a Word document that describes in text format what everything does. So you go through, you read all the different arguments and the commands, and then you know what you can include in your random map script and how to make random map scripts. It also tells you how to upload them as a mod. So there is a ton of good stuff in here. It's the encyclopedia for random map scripting. And then finally, I recommend the terrain link, wherever it may be. Terrain. Is in here too. This is the least important one. Did they move it around? I don't know. It's in here somewhere, guys. If you can't find it in here, so right now I'm making the video, but if you can't find it in here, just ask, and they'll be able to direct you to the link wherever it ended up. It's also possible it could be somewhere in this document here. I can also send it to you if you do need it. But there's not a lot of stuff in there. It's probably a list of like 100 things, so it is by far the easiest thing to just sort of remember. And you get to doing enough maps, you will remember that. So the three things that you need are, you need the constants list, probably the most important, maybe the second most important. You need the scripting guide, and somewhere up in here, when I don't have presenter syndrome, there is a list of terrains that you're going to need as well. So let me open these files, and I will just show you guys what they look like. So the random map scripting guide is this ODT, Open Document Text File, so let's double click it. And right off from the start, it gives you all these links that you can control and select, and it walks you, these are all the different sections. It's got a foreword, it's got a little section describing what a random map script is, and different things are compatible with different versions of the game. It shows you where to store things that you're working on, files, and where you can find the standard ones. So it's got all kinds of really great information in here. So what you're going to need to know for now is you need to navigate to this link right here. So for DE, you need Steam, Steam Apps, Common, AOE2, DE Resources, /_common/random map scripts. And you can make any subfolder that you want in there to organize it, and anything that is within that link right there, the game will go and look in, and it will find, and it will be able to find it in the scenario editor, which is where we're going to be doing the majority of the development. So go ahead and follow that link and get your folder set up. We're going to create just like a tutorial.rms is what we're going to call it for now. And we're going to give it Greek themes because I'm working on a Greek map pack right now. And we're basically all going to make the same map at the same time. But you could do slightly different things to it if you think it looks good. Doesn't really matter too much as long as you understand the process. Okay, so this is the random map scripting guide here. It's basically a book. You scroll down, you see like different arguments like terrain generation here, create terrain, terrain type, attributes. Okay, so it's got, and then here a list of all of the attributes here in different sections in the encyclopedia. So you don't need to memorize any of this or know any of this right now. Just know that it's organized in this manner, and it's got a short little example here to show you how to use it. So the constants list is right here. This constants list it's got several different tabs that kind of sort of organize it in different things. So the main thing that you want is DE only. We're on Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and literally like all it is just numbers, and then what kind of unit is associated with those numbers. So the description is essentially in the third column. The number that you want is in the first column, and the predefined constant, if it has one, is listed in the second column, and then any additional notes are listed in the fourth column. So for example, if I wanted to create a battering ram, I could come over here and I could reference number 35, or I could use the predetermined battering ram description, and I should just know that it is a battering ram. Or if I wanted to put down a fortress, well, hey, there is no predefined terminology for a fortress, so I would have to create it. Ja, isn't it like 3 a.m. for you? What are you doing, man? Welcome. Welcome to the stream. All right, so 75 garrison capacity. That's what it wants you to know about that fortress. So there's the constants list. And then the list of terrains is right here. And this gives all kinds of useful stuff. Constants all the way from 1 to 100 and something. And these are all the different possible terrains that are available in DE. Again, some of it have predefined terms, some of them don't, but fundamentally you can give them, you can reference all of these constant IDs are essentially available to you. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions about where to find these documents? Anybody at all? Josh says, I was going to go to bed, but suddenly I see you're streaming. Well, I appreciate you being here. All right, so if either of the guys in the voice channel, Seabass or T-Bomber, if you guys have any questions about where to find these documents, let me know, because we're literally going to do this. We're going to do this together, and you can stop me if you have any questions or any difficulty or any struggle or something like that. I really wish that you could find this terrains. In fact, what I'll probably do is let me just actually, let me upload this terrains to the voice chat right now because I can't point you directly where it's supposed to go. And I'll delete that later. And you guys can download that because I'm not sure where that is on the references list, but somebody will have it. But for the purposes of this tutorial, because I couldn't point you to a specific link right now because of presenter syndrome, I'm just going to upload it to the TV voice channel so you can access it. You're not going to need it for the folks that are following along and doing exactly what I'm doing because I'm going to say what all the numbers are. But if these guys feel like, oh, hey, I think that dry grass would look better, or I don't like this terrain, I'm going to do something slightly different. Well, there are the numbers for you. You can pull out a different number and you can use a different terrain, and that's all the reference right there. Okay, so let's go then. So I'm going to come in here to education. And let's see, where is education? Well, it's right before Flautagano. All right, so I've already got something in here from another educational project that I have. So you are in this folder. You got all your local disk, program files, Steam, CMAPs, etc., all that stuff that I was showing you earlier. Go ahead and right-click and say New, and then say New Text File, Text Document. So the new text document is, we're going to call that Tutorial for now, and hit enter. Okay, so we've got a text file named tutorial. This is close. If we open this up, we would see just a blank text. That's not necessarily what we want. So we can right click on this and we will say rename, and we have to give this a special extension in order for it to be there we go, recognizable by the scripting parser, or the game itself. The game looks for that .rms. So it says if you are about to change a file name extension, the file might become unusable or usable. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes, we do. Okay, so there we go. We got our file. It is tutorial.rms. Okay, so now when we minimize this window and we minimize this window and we go into single player, we go into editors, and we create scenario. So we go into the scenario editor. It gives us the option to start building a scenario off of a random map script. And that's what we want to do because that's the easiest place to experiment with things. All right, let me move myself over so that the mini-map is a little bit more visible. There we go. Okay. It's the 5th one up in the RMS Discord for terrain. Thank you, Seabass. Okay, so here we are. And let's go ahead and check to see if we can find, tiny map size for now, to see if we can find tutorial.rms. So we scroll down to the T's, and sure enough, we got tutorial right here. So I'm begging your pardon, but my list of random map scripts is very large and inflated. It's highly unwieldy. I got to go through and clean that up someday. So I'll select tutorial, and then I'll hit generate. And as you can see, nothing happens because there is literally no information in our text file at all. There's nothing in there, right? So there's nothing for it to do. So it just lays down default grass everywhere. Be known with it, right? Okay, so that's fine. What now? Well, now we're going to go back to this text file here. And now we're going to open it, and we're going to start putting things inside of it. So, double-click that. And, oh, my bad. I'm actually going to open this, and I'm actually going to open this with Notepad. Bam. So everybody's got Notepad on their computer. You don't have to worry about downloading some fancy editor or something like that. Everybody by default will have Notepad on their computer. So you all can do this exactly the way that I'm showing it. Now, if you want to go in and do different editors and that sort of thing, you absolutely can. Some people like Notepad++, for example, because it's got some good highlighting capabilities. We're just going to rough it through, and we're going to use the standard Notepad. So the first thing that we have to do then is let's throw this over here on the left-hand side. And let's throw this thing, the guide, over here on our right. Okay, the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at the skeleton syntax here. This is probably arguably the most important part of a random map script. So you see we've got these big sections here that are inside of these carrots. These funky carrots that are pointed in different directions. Okay, so we need to duplicate that, and we need to put that into our random map script as well. And those I like to call headers. I'm not sure what Zetnus calls them because I've never read the book, but I've read most of it, but I never read formally that part of it. So we're going to put those in. Regardless of what you call them, we need them. So we need player setup. We need land generation. Generation. Here we go. What else do we need? We need elevation generation. We need cliff generation. We need terrain generation. Okay. We need connection generation. And we need objects generation. Yes, I know, Job, but we're going to add that in anyway. These sections are not all mandatory, but we're going to add them all in for now because we're going to make best use of this tutorial and try to do everything. So I have a couple of general notes on all of these sections. So the player setup is the part of the random map script where the rules of the game are established. My text doc folder doesn't change to RMS. Oh, Seabass, just say something. So did you right click on it, and you should be able to change the extension.
Yeah, I tried saying something. I don't know if you heard me. So when I go to add new and add text document, it comes up. It adds a new, thing, but it doesn't come up with a dot anything after. It just says new text document. So
Oh.
it doesn't change anything when I right click it.
So John and I both know what you're talking about. He's typing in the chat here. He says you
Yeah.
have to go to the Explorer and you have to change a setting that shows the extension. So change folder and search options right here. And let's see. Oh, single click to open an item. That's actually quite nice. And it's one of the settings here.
I looked. I didn't see it.
I think he thinks it's in the View tab. Oh, okay, that would make sense. Yes, so it's right here in File Name Extensions. So you have to make sure that that box is checked so that you can change the extension.
And what do you click first?
So you click View, and then go to File Name Extensions right here. If you check it, then it'll give you the extensions of the files. Thank you, John. It's 3 a.m. and Ja is king. He knows exactly how to troubleshoot all the problems. That's great.
I'm not finding that.
All right. So, Seabass, can you share your screen through Discord, and we'll bring it up on my screen, and we'll look at it. See if we can help you find it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. That's why we're doing this.
Screen.
Just to get like real people.
There you go.
All right, let's take a look.
First, let's go back to this.
Okay. Let's see here. See if we can find it. Okay,
Nope,
so
no.
go over to the view. Oh, you
Yeah,
got it.
my bad. I was on the wrong
So
view. I was
say,
right clicking here, not up top.
okay,
My
yep.
bad.
So go to the new text document right there, and you can rename it to tutorial, and then you can, yeah, just hit F2 to rename, or that one's fine. So tutorial, and then you can change it to .rms. Here you go.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So you'll have to, if you don't rename it, it'll come up as new document for your random map script, which I guess is okay if that's what you want. All right. So we will close that stream, and we will continue. So we got tutorial.rms here, and we got all of these sections that we've added. So we've added player setup, land generation, elevation generation, cliff generation, terrain generation, connection generation, and objects. And I'm going to describe what each of these do. So the player setup basically determines the rules of the game. In player setup, you're going to put things like how the players are going to be placed, if they're going to be placed randomly or directly. You'll put in things like, do players start with nomad resources, or do the players start with standard resources? You'll put in things like, what kind of land behavior are you going to have? Are you going to have the legacy land behavior, or are you going to use the new land behavior that they redid because there was a bug in the old one, but because of obsolescence support, they have to provide the option to have the old one? Change the rules for the game. Are you going to give units additional hit points, or reduce their line of sight or something like that, or kill them immediately, 0 hit points? The sort of thing that you need to have in the player setup section. Without having player setup, you can't create player lands. All right, so land generation. What is this all about? Land generation basically is the most direct way of specifying parameters that you want. The land generation section of your script will determine the character of your script. This will be basically what says how your script plays out. Not exactly, but you can create the general shape of what you want in land generation. So land generation is the only place, with exception of object generation until recently, it was the only place where you could directly specify where you wanted certain features. So with land generation, you create these objects or these things called lands. And these lands have a certain base size, which is like a square, a box around an area. They have a certain amount of land growth around that box, which is organic and random. They have a specific elevation, and they have a specific terrain type. And you can constrain their location approximately with borders, or you can constrain their location exactly to a certain specific point with a land position argument. So land position will put down specific terrains at specific elevations in approximate or specific locations of specific sizes. So it is easily, hands down, the most important part of making a random map script. Okay, elevation generation. So elevation is basically where you go in and you can control additional elevation beyond what is controlled in lands. So in lands, when you specify an elevation, the entirety of that land is at a specific elevation. In elevation generation, the elevations that you create are random. So, for example, when you're generating an Arabia script, the Arabia script is going to have random hills scattered across your terrain. Um, that is not achieved with land generation. It is achieved with elevation generation. So the elevation depends on the land generation in that it will basically generate elevation only on specific types of terrain that exist when land generation is done. So for example, if you have in the top half of your map, it's all dirt, let's say. You could elevate just dirt if you wanted to elevation 7, and then you could elevate everything else to have random hills and such. So having dirt lands placed down first is your ability to control where that elevation goes. Without that, the elevation would just be scattered everywhere, which may not necessarily be what you want. Jaw's head is exploding. Terrain generation. It is a lot of English to take in a small amount of time. Okay, so cliff generation. You only really include that if you're going to do cliffs. We're not going to do cliffs, so I mean we may keep that there and kind of exclaim about how cute it is, but most random map scripters will stop using cliffs about the first week or two into random map scripting. It's very archaic. We have no control over where they go. They avoid lands by a certain distance, and they avoid player lands as well. So they're just basically eye candy. They don't do much for a random map script that you can't achieve by having hills in specific locations. Terrain generation. So terrain is where we make things look pretty. And sort of functional at the same time too, depending on what you want. But you can put things down like water, ice. Some terrains have special rules, like the cracked terrain. If you build on the cracked terrain, the buildings that are on the cracked terrain take bonus damage from all sources. Ice you can't build on. DLC rock you can't build on, but you can still walk over. So you can do some things with terrain generation, but terrain generation is all about the random dispersion of terrains. You cannot exactly control where terrain is going to be unless you do it in land generation and then you sort of repurpose it in terrain generation. And we're going to kind of show that. I don't know how they managed to affect positions of the hills on different Arabia versions. I'm sure it's very primitive. Okay, so terrains are all about replacing. So by the time you get to terrain generation, there is already some type of terrain that is on the map. It could be grass even if you didn't do anything. So you replace an existing terrain with another terrain. That's what terrain generation is all about. And you can do it within specific parameters. You can tell it to do a certain number of clumps. You can tell it to do a certain percentage of the map. You could tell it to do it within a certain number of height limits. You could even tell it to layer within a certain spacing to other terrain types. So that is where you do all of that. This is where the forests on Arabia are made, and the vast majority of maps. Connection generation. So connections basically go in and they say, I know that we did all these rules with terrain generation, but damn it, we just need to connect some things. We need to take a little shortcut because everything else that we did before just was not sufficient. So connection generation is exactly as it sounds. You basically take player lands and neutral lands, or both, and you replace land or terrain between player lands with another type of terrain using connection generation. So this a good example for this could be the roads on Team Islands, for instance. The roads between the player bases are generated with connections. So somebody basically said, well, wouldn't it be nice if we had roads connecting our towns? And so they said, well, okay, we'll add this section here. On Black Forest, connections are used to create the passageways between the forests. Object generation. So we've been through this. Objects are anything from gold, deer, archers, battering rams, buildings, invisible placeholders, you name it. Anything that a player can either control or interact with directly are considered objects. Even trees are technically objects too. The straggler trees that are placed around your town center are fundamentally objects. Now, when object trees are felled, they can be built over. They can be lamed, essentially. And this allows you to, let's say in the case of a town center, this allows you to build farms around your town center before all of the wood that's stored in the tree has been removed. Objects are not recommended for use, even though you have more control, I would say, over where objects go, especially now, than we ever have had in the past, than terrains. It's still not recommended to place your forests as objects, because it's less readable. There is no coloration on the minimap for object forests as there would be for terrain forests. So terrain forests have that like darker color on the minimap. That's because they are terrains instead of objects. So with terrains, if you cut the tree down, you can't build in that location until the tree is completely removed. So does anybody have any questions about what each of these sections do? All right, perfect. If not, then we will move on. And we will just mention, before saying anything more about the script that we're going to make, is that regardless of what order these sections appear in the text file, in the .rms file, regardless of the order that they appear in, the game will do them in the order that you see shown. So the game will always look for player setup first and do that. And then it will always look for land generation, and it will do that. And then it will look for elevation generation, and it will do that. It doesn't matter if I take land generation and put it down here. The game will still do player setup, then land generation, then elevations, cliff, terrain, connections, and objects. So doesn't matter how this is all arranged. And the reason that the game does it in this order is because when the devs or whoever developed the random map scripting capability for Age of Empires, when they sort of logically put together a system for how this was going to work, this is what they came up with, and this is what we're stuck with. So, without further ado, we will get into it. So, I envision you don't use any syntax highlighting. I could T-Bomber. I actually use Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is a great application, and there is a syntax highlighting module for it. I think it was developed by Anda, and that's what I use. So it's got a darker background, but I don't want to get into how to do. I don't want to get into how to download that right now. I do recommend it though. I would recommend getting a good syntax highlighter and getting a good setup for that, because it can definitely be really aggressive on your eyes staring at this all day, this big white screen. So, but we don't really need anything like that so far. So let's see. What do we want for player setup here? I think that's kind of the first thing that we need to look at. There isn't going to be anything too controversial with this. We're basically just establishing the rules. These are literally all of the versions that we can make here, or all the different arguments that we can have inside of this. So this is a very simple part to set up, because we're not going to be changing any rules or doing anything crazy, like I said. So let's add some things here to player setup then. Let's give it random placement. That's the easiest thing to start out with. And oh, there's one more thing I want to add though, and that is, in order to comment something out, use a slash and then that star sign, and then a star sign and a slash, just like this. So because random placement is inside of this, it is now a comment. And that means that as the scripting parser is reading through here, it is no longer going to recognize this as a valid line of code. Be very careful with these comments. They can get people. They're very confusing. So if you have no space here, this is technically going to fail. You must have a space right here. And you need to have a space on the other side, and you need to have these exact characters to begin and these exact characters to close the comment. So it's another word that I want to give on comments here. So the very first thing that we're going to need to do if we're going to make a very basic random map script is we need to set up the land generation. So you guys know me. I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff. Don't write if and random statements inside comments. Oh, snap. I do that all the time. All right. So you guys know me, though. I'm always thinking about what would be a cool map design. So I think we need some kind of like archipelago style map, I think, or it's kind of difficult to explain here. But let's go into land generation. Let's just actually do it. We got kind of like an ancient Greece theme here, so I really want the white cliffs. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So the first thing that we need to do before we do anything else is we need to create some player lands. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say create player lands. And it needs to look exactly like that, and it needs to have these curly brackets right here. Now make 5,000 lands. It's exactly what we're not going to do, Ja. And it's not 5,000, it's 50,000. And so this command is basically telling the parser, okay, we want you to create lands for the players now. We're going to specify, before these create player lands, we're going to specify a base terrain of water. Just like that. Okay, so we have a base terrain of water, and we have create player lands here. Now, we need some arguments in here, otherwise it's not going to know what to do. So when we're creating these player lands, we need to have a terrain type, we need to have a land percent, we need to have circle radius, we need to have a base size, and actually we're going to put that base size before circle radius. And we could set zones, but we're not going to do that right now. And then we need to have a base elevation. Just like that. Okay. So we need to actually specify what kind of terrain type that we want. So we're going to say grass, or we could say even DLC dry grass, I think. Because remember, I'm thinking Mediterranean ancient Greece here. So these are our objects. Come over here, and DLC dry grass is number 100. And there it is. It's just right there. It's just brownish grass. So you can specify the constant first. I haven't shown you how to do that. We haven't needed to know how to do that. So just put in DLC dry grass for now. We're not going to have too many of them, so it's not super important. So land percent, we're going to tell it to generate 10%. Base size is going to be 5. Circle radius is going to be 30. And base elevation is going to be 0. It's a toughie. Okay, what else? Well, we probably want behavior version 1 here. Let's use the latest and greatest. So behavior version 1 is the DE. It's more accurate, calculates how big to actually make these lands. All right, so here's what this is saying, basically. This is telling the game to go in and create a land for every player that's playing, make it out of DLC dry grass, make it take up approximately 10% of the map, give it a base size of 5, which is like a square 5, a radius of 5, but in a square, so not circular, but you get what I mean. A circle radius of 30, meaning that it make it 30 tiles away from the center of the map, and then base elevation 0, which means don't elevate it at all, make sure that it's flat. So there is one more thing I want to check out, though, and that is circle radius here. Let's highlight that, because we need more than just one argument, I believe, for circle radius. Yeah, it's the radius, and then it's the variance. So we'll put a variance of 0 in for now, and then hit save. So now let us go and check out our, oops, let's go back to the skeleton syntax. All right, let's go back and check out our map and see what happened. So we have 2 players. We're on a 2-player map size, so that all seems appropriate, all seems right. And let's hit generate. All right, there we go. We got a couple of player lands. Hey, Smokey, welcome. As you can see, they constitute approximately 10% of the map. And of course, the land growth is organic and random. if we put in more than 2 players, say that we put in 8 players, what happens? Okay, as you can see, we've got 8 lands arranged concentrically around the center of the map. All right, well, that's all well and good and everything like that. Where are we going with this exactly? Well, it's all a matter of what we want to do. Let's start adding some more features. So let us make sure that random placement is enabled. And what would happen if we increase the land percent to, let's say, I don't know, 50? We would expect these lands to get a lot bigger, right? Let's generate it. You see, now all the player lands are all intersecting and stuff, and that's really ugly. What could we do to stop this? Well, we could add... Let's bring our script back up. We could add an other zone avoidance distance here. So if we do an other zone avoidance distance of 10, then these lands will avoid each other by 10 tiles. Now you can go in here and you can hit control and you can actually go into that section and you can read what Zetness says that does, but I can tell you from experience that that's what that will do. Okay, so now, as you can see, these player lands are all avoiding each other by 10. And of course, we don't have an appropriate map size. I guess we should probably choose large. Okay, there we go. And you can see that we've got some cliffs growing here too, because we have cliff generation randomly specified. You can also see that one of these lands appears to just grow into the center of the map. Doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. Looks kind of like seasons like that. Well, we're not really trying to make seasons. We're just trying to have some fun here and do an instructional scripting stream. So more importantly, though, let's verify that these are properly occurring, like in a circle, right? Because right now it looks like the center of this one is like in here, and these ones are further out, and that's pretty unwieldy. So let us come back over here to the script file. We'll bring up our reference too, but we'll come over here to objects generation and go ahead and do this with me and say create object, and then after create object say town underscore center, just like that. We're going to create an object, town center. We're going to give it some squiggly brackets, and between those two squiggly brackets we're going to say set place for every player and find closest. So it will create a town center for every single person that is playing this game, and it will put that town center exactly on the origin of the player land, as close as it can. So this will tell us where the true origin of that player land is. All right. Let's generate this. So let's come down here, and you see this seed button. This is very useful for debugging purposes. You can check this, and it will generate this seed number again, but under the new set of conditions that we selected or set up in our script. So we went into our script and we changed something. We want to know if changing that thing solved the problem, or we want to know some additional information about that particular seed number. So now we'll hit generate and we'll see. So as you can see, the origin for this player's land is right here. Orange's land is right here. These players are indeed in a perfect circle, but Orange's land grows inward, giving Orange a disadvantage relative to the other players. This is kind of unfair, right? This means that Orange is more likely to be attacked by other players than, let's say, Purple, who has the majority of his land growing back here. So what can we do? What can we do to fix that, to make that a little bit better? If we've got these basic islands that we want to work with. Okay, so we need to try and make it so that Orange's land, and everybody's land for that matter, is a little bit more, how shall I say this? Like a little bit more uniform. It's like they try to fit within the same space. They're more square, if you will. Oh, what's that? Square, you say? Well, you know, we do have a lever that we can pull to increase the squareness. What happens if we make that 15? So we'll save that. We'll stay on the same seed, except this time we've changed the base size from 5 to 15. So now, instead of extending 5 tiles out, it's going to try to extend 15 tiles out. But it's going to be occupying the same amount of land, which means it won't be able to afford to grow all the way out here because it's too busy growing over here. Okay, it certainly helps to have a larger base size. This is approximately more uniform. Another argument that is in our arsenal, if you will, is the clumping factor. So if we can actually see, if we jump to it in the document, what Zetnus writes about the clumping factor is we can choose a useful range of about 0 to 40, and this is the extent to which land growth prefers to clump together near existing tiles. Moderate values create rounder lands, while low values create more irregular lands. And high values create lands that extend in one direction away from the origin. Negative values create extremely snaky lands and are not recommended. What is the for every player text? Oh, set place for every player. It's right here. So we just created a town center for every single player, just so that we could see what was going on. Okay, so we're going to add a clumping factor to this to sort of help it out and reduce our dependency on base size here too. So we're going to just come down here. It doesn't matter what order you put these in. And we're going to say clumping factor 40. We'll save it. Well, we got kind of rounder lands here. This land, I think, tries to grow, but it can't really grow in either of these directions, and so it decided to grow out that way. So let's try reducing the base size a little bit and just tweak with things. Maybe make the base size 10. You can make like random roads with negative clumping factor. Yeah, it sounds fascinating. All right. We've still got a little bit of an offshoot over here. But this could be a consequence of trying to cram everybody pretty close together. Let's make some actual adjustments that we might be interested in. So let's reduce this land percentage from 50 to 10 again. And let's see how that works out for us. Also remember that we've got 6 players, or we've got 8 players on a 6-player map size. So that is also something to consider. And we'll dial that up a little bit more. Land percent, let's try 20. Okay. Cool. So everybody's kind of on their own little islands. Let's check the random and see how it goes. Might need to make the base size a little bit larger. And the other thing that we can consider doing is actually scaling the base size according to the map size. So, for instance, let's give it a little bit more growth here. 30%. Need to grow the base size some. Basically to find a baseline that we're comfortable with, and then go ahead and modify it from there. Okay. So we can clearly see the straight edges of these islands. It's not necessarily desirable. So before we go too much further, we really got to ask ourselves, what do we want out of this map? And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we had some kind of like some kind of 5 lakes style map? I thought that would be a lot of fun. Sorry, excuse me, guys, but it's going to require us. It's going to require us to work with neutral lands now. So, you know, we're just kind of playing around with numbers here. We don't really have too serious of an objective to deal with. But I just wanted to show how you could make a simple islands map with that, because you know, Greece islands. There's lots of little islands in the Aegean. But let's not worry about. Let's not break our necks over this too much. Let's come back and we'll change the base terrain to grass again, and basically just like that, you start asking the question. Oh wait, what? What are you worried about? Don't worry about this visual bug. It's just a bug. Okay. So as you can see, we've got dry grass now. We've got regular grass, but this is kind of a case where nobody really cares how far the dry grass goes, right? So what I want to show now is I want us to look at a 5 lakes map. So let's generate some lakes here, and we'll do that before we generate the player lands. So if we were going to make 4 lakes, we would basically just go through and we would create 4 lands. So let's do that first. So we are going to bring up our guide here, and this is really the map that I kind of want to make. Is a 5 lakes map. I know, real original, right? 5 lakes. But this is the idea that I had. All right, so we are going to create land. Our curly brackets here, and the terrain type is going to be the terrain type is going to be DLC gravel beach. Actually, we'll just use beach for now. We could call it DLC gravel beach just kind of to show you guys. But I think we're just going to call terrain type beach for now. Beach is more like a white beach. You guys can go in and read the descriptions if you want. Okay, land percent. Or we could do a number of tiles. So I'm going to say that the land percent is going to be 1. Yeah, maybe more than that. Maybe like 4 or so. Base size is going to be 12. Okay, and then we're going to specify a land position exactly. And this land position is going to be at 50-50. So this is kind of our 5th lake, if you will, and it's going to be exactly in the center of the map. So what do I mean by 50-50? I mean that if we looked at a map and we went 50% this way, the origin is in the left-hand corner. If we went 50% of the map edge this way and 50% of the map edge this way, we would find the origin of our land, which so happens 50 and then 50 is in the exact center of the map. So that's what we want. We want it to be in the center for now. So land percent 4, base size 12, land position 50-50, and let's add in a clumping factor 40 for good measure. And base elevation of 0. And we will save it. So now let's hit generate and see what happens. Okay, we indeed have the beaches of our land, and that's awesome, right? You can hit generate a couple more times. You say, oh, but Tech Chariot, that's not a lake. It's just a sandy area. Well, watch this. We put this beach down because we want to be able to control the type of beach that we have here. You can make the random roads with negative clumping factor. Yeah, I already read that. Okay, so let's come down here then to terrain generation, and we'll bring up Zetnus's guide. Scroll down to the skeleton syntax for terrain generation, and we're going to say create terrain water in our curly brackets, and the base terrain is going to be beach. The base layer is not, we're not going to put that there. Terrain mask we're not going to use. Spacing other terrain types though we will use, and we will set a spacing other terrain types of 1. And then we will say we want a land percent of 100. And we want a number of clumps, 9320. And we want clumping factor of 40. And we want set scale by size. And that's it. So what this will do is this will go in and it will do a terrain generation after all the lands are set up, and it will find all beach terrain and replace it with water that meets these criteria. It will try to do it to 100% of the beach if it can. It will try to find 9,320 different clumps to do it to. But it's actually more than that because it's scaling it up according to the map size. It will do it with a clumping factor of 40, which means it'll try to do it in a more rounded way because 40 is a round number. But only on maps without connections. Oh, Ja is saying you can control the beach with beach terrain attribute, but only on maps without connections. Well, we're going to have connections. Maybe, probably. I want to have that option open. Okay, so, but here's the important thing right here, space and other terrain types. So if we look at this, right, we've got grass here and then we've got beach out here. The water is not going to be able to replace this tile right here or any of these tiles that are adjacent to the grass. It can't, because we have space and other terrain types of 1, which means that the water has to always avoid the grass by 1 tile, which means we're going to get a layer of beach here, and it will be beautiful. If you have a body of water without a beach, you actually cannot dock it. Okay, so now that this is all saved up, let's hit generate and see what we get. So as you can see, we have ourselves a little lake in the center. Okay, it was created by a directly placed land, and then we layered some actual real water on top of that beach terrain that is creating it. So we hit some generate, and the shape of it might be a little bit organic. Okay, but you guys get the idea. Okay, now let's create our other lakes. So we've got this lake, right? And we need another lake. So if we wanted to create a lake in every single corner of the map, how would we do it? So we're going to comment this, and we're going to say creation of the 5 lakes. It's like Battle of the 5 Armies, but actually good. So everything that I put in here will probably be identical if we're satisfied with this lake, with exception of, oh shoot, that's the terrain. So we'll get rid of that. We don't need to repeat that multiple times. Be careful not to have any rogue curly signs appear. Do you guys have any questions so far? Seabass, T-Bomber, you guys there? You fall asleep? No questions. All right. 2. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so these other lands that we're creating of beaches are going to be the same in every way, except we're going to change their position. So we're going to have one at 1, 99. We're going to have one at 99, 1. Except there's no comma here, it's just a space. But these are almost like their Cartesian coordinates, if you will, if the center of the map is 50-50. And then we'll have one at 1, 1 in the left-hand corner. And then we'll have one at 99, 99. Okay. So how about that for random lake generation? What do you guys think? Does that seem fair to you guys? Kind of how organic and curly these lakes are? Or do you guys think it's fine? I think it's sort of fun myself. This is on a normal map size. We go to tiny, let's see how that looks. I guess they're a little bit more uniform on a tiny map size, which is nice. Viper should play this. So what's going on here? Look at this lake. This lake is basically perfectly square. Can you guys guess what's going on with that? See, it's these player lands that are interfering with it. It's trying to grow, but these player lands are preventing it from growing in the different directions. So what if we had just 2 players? T-Bomber says it looks beautiful. Better than my map? You mean the map that you're working on now, or the Wisconsin map that you made? Okay, so we should try to make this a little bit, we should try to make this a little bit more proper here. Maybe reduce the base size of this. Your current map, well, it's all, in theory, your map should be the same as mine. Both, actually. All right, let's come over here. And we got the first one here. Its base size is 12. And it seems to be struggling with the player lands. So what if we made the lake in the middle a little bit smaller? Ja says, I need to make some map, but I have no inspiration. Actually, I think we're going to try making the player lands themselves a little bit smaller. We don't really care too much about how big these player lands are. So we can have a base size of 0 for all I care. And land percent of 0. There we go. So that they're not messing with the lake too much. And if we really need to grow them later, we can. Again, the lake in the center does not wish to grow. That's bizarre. We are on behavior version 1, are we not? Yes. All right, well, what happens if we specify that we want this lake to take up 100% of the map? Okay, it will happily do so, pushing the player lands out to the edges. All right, what about 10%? Okay, it'll try to grow if we give it 10%. Grows toward this player land. Kind of grows that way. Should probably boost the base size for this. I'm not really sure why it would need something different than the ones in the corners. I guess you could argue that the ones in the corners, in theory, have 1/4 the amount of space to grow in. Okay, too large of a base size. We'll dial it back. and it was at 12, so we could make it smaller, maybe 8, and land percent of 3. We need more land percentage. So how about land percent of go back to 4. Okay. So I would like to make these player lands a little bit larger. So let's do that, and I'll explain why in just a bit. But I have a vision here. I have a vision here of white beaches. So in order to do that, the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to make this base terrain something that is whitish and cliff-like, because basically how this works is we're going to elevate this to create the illusion of cliffs, because we can't really look, the cliffs just show up wherever they want, right? We have no control over it. We could go in and try to adjust the amount of them or how curly they are, but it's just really, really bad. So let us simulate cliffs with elevation. So if we're going to do that, my map still looks like islands. Oh, okay. Did you, T-Bomber, go into the base terrain and change that back to grass? Because if you didn't change that to grass, you're going to be in trouble. Actually, we're going to change it to road. I want it to be road. Because road is where we need to be. Alright, so we're going to change that to road. And then hit generate. And we've got a lot of white, beautiful road here. Isn't it pretty? We got cliffs all over the road, because why not? We've got an approximate lake here, which we could always tweak that, fine-tune it later. Doesn't really matter too much. So now, let's elevate this. So we'll come up, we'll bring our text file up, we'll bring Zetnus's guide up, and please stop me and let me know if you have any questions. So we got our 5 lakes. We're going to fine-tune the 5 lakes later. We're creating our player lands. We're going to come in here to elevation generation, and we're going to say create elevation 5. Just like that. And then curly brackets. And we're going to start adding arguments. So we need a base terrain. Our base terrain is going to be road. We don't have a base layer. We need number of tiles. And we want that to span the entire map. So we're going to say 100,000. Number of clumps. So the number of clumps is going to be, well, basically just 10. This is not too important because number of tiles is 100,000. But basically, if we had like some little pocket somewhere that wasn't connected to this main thing, then we would want to be able to grab that and elevate that too. Or we would want to eliminate the possibility that it would like find that one little pocket over here and elevate that instead of everything else, which then screws up the rest of the map. Okay, number of clumps. So we'll just set it equal to 100 for now. Again, it doesn't really matter. We're going to set scale by groups, which I believe means that we're scaling the number of clumps to map size, which is what we want. Good. Go over to the syntax skeleton again. All right, and then finally, enabling balanced elevation. So there was a bug in the old version where the elevation was not balanced. They went in and added an option where, in theory, it gets better if you add this command. It still doesn't work, but it's better than nothing. So we're going to enable balanced elevation, just like that. Okay, so now, when we hit generate, we should elevate our road. And as you can see, our road is indeed elevated above the water now. So we got these big ol' inclines, or we got these roads on inclines, if you will. But there is one problem, though, and that problem is this right here. T-Bomber says, now I have a central lake, but players will immediately have to fight each other with their town centers. You mean their town centers are too close to the central lake? Do you have the lakes in the corner, T-Bomber? Do you have the lakes in the corners? You have no lakes in the corners. Okay. So it's probably a problem with the land generation. Do you have these lands? Are you creating these beach terrains? And one in the center at 50%, 50%. And then one at 199, one at 99, 1, one at 11, and one at 99, 99. Do you have these ones too? You can talk if you want to on the stream. You are creating lands. So you want to create these lands in these specific locations. So you create these 5 lands, one for each of the lakes. So you put a land in each of the corners, and you also put a land in the center. And then the create player lands are arranged in a circle around that. Elevation by default avoids player starting areas. So we can come over here, and first of all, we're going to say that we want the player lands to be road as well. Actually, we're going to leave that out for now, just so you guys can see what happens. But we're going to give this a base elevation of 5. And we're going to see if we can tell those player lands, because there's no way to elevate player lands, essentially. Player lands are at an elevation. The only elevation that you can do are to lands that you create or the base elevation. So we're going to tell this to elevate. Yeah, have a great night, Ja. Thanks for stopping in. It's probably quite late where you are in the Czech Republic. Okay, let's generate. So that kind of worked. We were able to generate this elevation, but as you can see, the town center got thrown over here. Why is that? Well, the reason for that is because this is an illegal place for the town center now. The town center needs flat ground. You couldn't build a town center here, so why would you be able to place one? So it placed this at elevation 5, but as you can see, the base size is small. The base size is only 0. Same problem with this over here. So what we need to do is we need to increase that base size. So we're going to go base size of, let's say 4, and see what happens. Okay, looks a little bit better, right? We could actually probably even decrease it. We just want it to grow to fill up this gap, if you will, with road terrain or dry grass terrain that's at elevation 5, so that we don't have this pit here. So base size are going to say 2, and when we decrease it to 2, we can confirm that yes, this is now a smaller location. So now we're going to say land percent a lot, maybe even land percent 10. Where are we? Land percent. Well, let's start out at like 6. And this should be entirely filled in. All right, it went out this way. That went out that way. So we will increase our base size a bit to try to coach it into expanding in the correct direction. So we'll go back up to 4. Again, that's looking better, but we're not quite there yet. I think I'm going to decrease this base size, or this clumping factor, to 30. See if that's a little bit better. We'll keep this seed number. Oops. Yeah, that's much better. Oh! However, it grabbed onto this. That's no good. Well, we should be able to fix that. So are you all caught up, T-Bomber? Are you getting the lakes to spawn? Oops. We know. In the meantime, though, let's make sure that we get everything. So let's increase the land percentage to 8. We'll keep this seed number. We should be able to fill in this pit here with that. Yep, there we go. As you can see, we are kind of grabbing this lake, though, and pulling it upward, which is not ideal. I'll just watch the VOD later when I can pause. No, that's not how it works. Can you share your screen in Discord and we'll take a look? Make sure that we get you caught up with everybody else. That's why we're doing this. Because if you have to pause, that means that I failed as an instructor. It means I've been going too fast. So I want you to walk away from this session and the time that you spent learning with the satisfaction that you made something. Irakli Kitsavili says, what is happening? We are making a very basic random map script from scratch for Age of Empires 2. Alright, so can you share your screen, T-Bomber, in Discord, and we'll take a look at it together? Be right back. I'm going to refill my glass here. It's really important to me that you're able to keep up. Like, I want you to walk away from your time tonight with something, you know? Okay. I am back. This is wonderful. You are going way too fast for me to keep up. Well, let me know, man. Stop me. I'm glad that you approve, Irakli Tikishvili. Oh, we're just doing something very simple. It's, you should see some of my more advanced work. Okay. So we're going to see what T-Bomber's got. Show me the script, T-Bomber. Okay. Let's watch T-Bomber's stream here. Okay, I'm in T-Bomber. Show me the script. Uh-oh. All right, go ahead and show me the script. I will check it out for sure. I would appreciate that. Okay, I can't see your script file, T-Bomber. Are you sharing your screen or are you sharing the game? I need to see the text. So in order to share your screen, you can go down to Screen Share, and then you should be able to pick a specific window and share that. You coming, T-Bomber? Can you hear me? Can you unmute your mic real quick? All right, Seabass can hear me. T-Bomber, I need you to bring up your script file. Okay, he's working on it. All right, good. Got confirmation. And show me what your script file looks like. I'm sure it's something really simple. I spent a lot of time in college like slaving over something, spending hours trying to find a workaround, and then the professor was just like, yeah, that's wrong. And I was like, what? That makes it so simple and easy. Here we go. All right. So you need to uncomment random placement. That's your first thing, T-Bomber. So remove the slashes and the stars away from random placement. Oh, nice. You got Notepad++. All right. So you have... Oh, okay. You're creating your player lands before your other lands. That's interesting. So you're creating your land with beach terrain. So go ahead and put your other lands. Lands cannot have a spacing to other terrain types argument. So you need to remove the spacing to other terrain types. In fact, hold on. Scroll down a little bit. What else have you got in there? All right, so get rid of all of your create lands except for the first two that I saw. And make sure that you delete the curly brackets associated with them. So delete that. All right, get rid of that rogue curly bracket there. There you go. Okay, so take your create land that's at the top. So copy everything that's in that. So copy the curly brackets and the create land. Okay, and paste it between where it is now and the create player lands, and do that 4 more times. Okay, and put the appropriate, spacing in there and everything like that, so it recognizes it as different land creation commands. So you've got a create land there behind. Yep, there you go. You got it. Okay, so now go ahead and change your land positions on those 2 through 5 of those created lands. So the second create land argument, go ahead and change your land position to 1, 1. 1 space 1. There you go. All right, next one is 1 space 99. Next one is 99 space 1. The next one is 99 space 99. Okay, go ahead and save. Make sure you're all saved up. Now go ahead and, just for a sanity check, go back into the game and try generating that. Make sure that that it gives you the lands that you want. And assuming that it does, we can do the next step, which is in terrain generation. When you're ready, okay, good. When you're ready, let's go down to terrain generation. All right, and say create terrain. Okay, and then the terrain is going to be water, so say W-A-T-E-R. All right, curly brackets underneath. The lands don't have anything before the curly brackets, so base terrain is going to be beach, and it needs to be lowercase. Just type beach in there. Capitals, all capitals. Okay. And then number of tiles, or actually land percent rather. Let's do land percent. Land percent underscore percent, 100. Number of clumps. Okay. That's 9320. Okay. Set scale by groups. Okay. And then spacing to other terrain types is the final argument of 1. Spacing. 2 other terrain types. Yeah, it's a long thing to type, I know. Of 1. All right, go ahead and save it. All right, go ahead and run that and make sure that you get the lakes with the white beaches. All right, excellent. Let's continue with the tutorial, or continue with my portion of the tutorial. And please, 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 please stop me. If it's not working for you, don't be afraid of being a little punk and stopping me and interrupting the video for everyone else. This is good. This is our objective. Our objective is to get you guys something that you can hang your hat on at the end of the tutorial. You know, it's really important. Okay. Well, it looks like we got 20 minutes to finish this up then. Okay, so we don't really need this dry grass here. There's not really any particular reason that this is dry grass, but we have another problem. And that is that we need... Oh, just have to pick up the wife? Oh, that's a good reason. We need to make sure that it's not doing this. We don't want this. This is bad. So, tell you what if we did these player lands first? Okay, we created them first, and then when we made these other neutral lands in the corners, these lakes, if you will, what if we told these lakes to avoid those player lands by a certain distance? Well, then we probably wouldn't have these lands cutting into each other. So let's see if we can manage that. So let's take this create player lands right here, and let's cut it, and let's put it up at the top, like this. Paste it just right there. Okay, now let's go in and under base elevation on our... Oh, shoot, we need base terrain road to be at the top here. So land generation, base terrain road, and then create player lands. Okay, so save it. Now create land. And we got all these different beach land creations, right? We got one for each corner and we got one for the center. So for each of these, we can come in here and we can say min placement distance, let's say 6. And let's add that to each of these lands, and let's see what happens. I bet that will solve our problem. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the last one is 5. Okay. So in theory, if memory serves me correctly, this will essentially make it so that when this land is growing, it must avoid this other land by 6 tiles at least. So let's keep this seed number checked right here. And let's hit generate again, confirming that our file is saved. So we'll hit Control S and we'll make sure that it's saved. We will hit generate. And looking a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it does look a lot better. So that would just be a matter of increasing our avoidance distance a little bit. So let's come in here and we'll make sure that this is, let's try setting this equal to 8 and see what happens. But can you see how these lands can become very, very tedious? Like it might be advantageous for somebody to want to automate the process that creates them. All right, let's generate again. Did we not save that? Well, that's too bad. But I think we pretty much got our hearts set on having these elevated beaches here. It's just kind of unfortunate that it's not avoiding properly. Ugh, it's even worse. It's not avoiding at all. Boo! Alright, so that didn't work. Let's make sure that we check our documentation and the terminology of everything. Make sure we're using the right term. I'm pretty sure we are. Min placement distance. Oh shoot, it's other zone avoidance distance is what we want. Well, herderpaderp. It's basically the same thing as these create player lands have. Okay, that should do it. We could even give these different zone numbers if we really wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. We'll see. Might be necessary. All right. Let's go back down to tiny and see what happens. Okay, there we go. Good. So 8 might actually even, in fact, be a little bit large. We may not need 8 exactly. Let's do a couple more generations, though, and we'll see. Yeah. Maybe make it 7. It's really close, though. We might just leave it like that for the sake of simplicity. Let us grow the base size just a little bit to deal with these craters here. And we'll get rid of cliffs because I'm not going to do anything with cliffs, and they just kind of look ugly. They don't fit the theme that we've got here. So let us come into cliff generation and just hit the delete button. Okay. So we talked about decreasing this, but I don't think we're going to. What else did we? Oh, right. We wanted to increase the base size a little bit for these created player lands. So maybe we'll do like a base size of 5 and save it. Run it again. A little bit of an elevation pocket there. A little bit more, maybe. All right, we'll go one more, I think. And then after that, I'm not really going to feel comfortable. The good news is because we're testing it and examining it on a tiny map size, like this is the worst it's ever going to be. Yeah, that's fine. That's better. And let us change it to road now. There's no reason for it to be DLC dry grass at this time. All right. So how are we doing, T-Bomber? We all caught up? All looking good? Got our town center on some road. We got a little pit here, which we're going to deal with later. And we've got all these gorgeous, gorgeous roads everywhere. What code do you have for the TC placement? Ah, yes, okay. So for the town center placement, I have, it's under objects generation because the town center is an object. And we have create object town center, and then these curly brackets opening, and then curly brackets, and then set place for every player, and then find closest, and then curly bracket close. So it's very simple. Yep. So I don't really like how this lake is shaped right now. The good news is I think that we can decrease the base size on this lake and it should look a little bit more organic. So the lake in the middle, we're going to decrease the base size to 6. We'll generate it again. Okay, that's better. So now we're going to go ahead with making this look a little bit... Ah, you were missing find closest. So they were appearing anywhere and everywhere. Okay, so now... and don't worry about this spectator bug right here. This is just the waves. Okay. Let's start prettying this up a bit. We're not going to go too overboard with this, but I do want to show the technique and how everything works and all that good stuff. So let us come over here, and because we're going to be basically manipulating an existing terrain, we're not going to be putting something down with like in a specific location. We're gonna take all the road that exists here, and we need this road to look rock-like. We need it to look like something tells me that they're called. See if I can get you guys a picture of what the look is that we're going for here. Share it on stream here. We want white cliffs like this. Okay, I believe that this is considered, it's called dolomite. It's like some kind of metamorphic rock that's compressed versions of limestone. We want, and this is apparently this was taken in Italy, but this is a big Mediterranean look right here, and this is what we want. Okay, so first things first, right? We're going to mask some rock terrain over this to give it more of a rocky, whitish appearance. That's pretty much going to be the best we can do, I think. So we're going to come over here to terrain generation, and we are going to create terrain. We can comment everything how we want, but we're going to create terrain DLC rock. Our base terrain is going to be road, and we will have no space in other terrain types, so we'll get rid of that. We want to cover 100% of the map with this for now. And number of clumps, clumping factor 40, set scale by size, that's all good. Let's add one more thing though, because if we don't add it, it will simply replace. Well, let's actually just generate to show you what happens if we... Okay, bam, so it's just all rock, right? That's pretty useless to us. All we did was replace the road with rock, and now we can't even get the town centers to spawn because town centers cannot be built on rock. So we need to go in and we need to place the following text. Terrain mask 1. And this will mask this rock that we are placing now over the road terrain that we had already, that was already there. If we used terrain mask 2, the rock would be placed underneath the road, which is not what we want. I've checked this out visually, and this looks way better. You are welcome to try it, though, as terrain mask 2 if you want. Now, because the rock is just on top of the road, technically this is still considered road terrain, which means that, you know, you can build on it. So the town centers still spawn here. If we did terrain mask 2, sometimes they look differently. And not only would it look different, but it wouldn't look quite right. Like, it looks like they're just different patches, you know, of rock. And that's not really what we want. We want that uniform appearance. So we're going to make sure that this is terrain mask 1. Hey, Emu, this is an instructional scripting stream. We are making a random map script without text fancy tools. We're just using very simple methods. If you do terrain black underneath terrain water shallow, it looks cool. All right, if you say so. Okay, what's next? Well, we can't have this whole thing be rock, right? That would be very unwieldy. So once we get to the top, we're probably going to want some dry grass or something, or at least some dirt. So let's apply some other terrain once we get to the top. So you could spend all day like masking things and blending things against other things to make stuff look really nice. But we don't have to do that right now. We don't necessarily want to do that right now. Dirt mud is super pog. Yeah, all right. Whatever you say, Emu Warrior. So let's create ourselves another type of terrain here. But we're going to be careful about this one. We're going to create terrain, and stop me if you get mixed up or it doesn't work, T-Bomber. We're going to create terrain. We're going to make gravel, I think. So we're going to say gravel. And we're going to want base terrain of road, because remember, this is still road. But we want it to be within specific height limits. We don't want to undo these gorgeous white cliffs that we've created here. So let us come over and we will say, we don't want a terrain mask right now. We'll say that we want height limits of 4 to 5. This is all elevation 5 up here. So now when we generate, look at that. Nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. In fact, it looks messed up. What did we forget? Emu Warrior says, by the way, I'm not sure that you can create things like gold piles on top of road. Of course you can, Emu Warrior. Don't question me. Okay. Well, this didn't work. Why did this not work? The reason this didn't work is because it doesn't know what gravel is. We need to define gravel. So to do that, we need to go and look up and see what terrain gravel even is. And then we need to tell it how to find it. So gravel is constant number 70 right here. But as you can see, it doesn't have a predefined constant. It's just gravel default, and it's just gray gravel. So we're going to come up here to our player setup. And we are going to type in a pound sign here, and we're going to say constant gravel with the name and then number 70. And that will basically tell it that anytime you see the word gravel, it just means number 70. So it'll go to this list, it'll find number 70, and it'll say, ah, I know what that is. And then it will place it. Okay. So, bam. We've got gravel now. Congratulations to us. Okay, so now we got gravel on top. How does that look? What do you guys think about that? I say that we need to do a little bit better of a job blending it. So we'll come back down here to terrain, and we will copy this command, and we'll do everything exactly the same, except instead of gravel, we will create more DLC rock, and we will create a base terrain of, or we will use a base terrain of gravel now, and we will say terrain mask 1. So that we are essentially masking DLC rock over this gravel. You would use dirt mud on the edge. This is grease, Emu Warrior. Does that sound appropriate to you? Okay, so there we go. So you can see that it's still gravel because it's still the lighter mini-map color. But as you can see, there's lots of dirt rock here, mixed with the gravel. So it gives it a little bit more of a gravel-like transition, if you will. Okay, now we're going to transition into the dirt that Emu Warrior has been talking about. So to do that, we need to keep track of what we currently have down. We currently have DLC rock down. So anything that we replace has to be replacing DLC rock. So we're going to create terrain now, and we're just going to put down some dirt. Seabass has to go, but he'll be back. Thanks. No problem. We're just doing terrain layering right now. It's the pretty part. It's kind of fun, but it's not super duper important. So we will create terrain, and we will create dirt. And the base terrain is going to be DLC rock. And we want to create it on the very top here. So our height limits are going to be 5, 5. And let's get rid of this terrain mask for now. See what we get. Nothing. Oh, because it's not DLC rock, it's gravel, remember? We're just masking this rock over the gravel, but this isn't actually rock. We're actually putting down gravel, so we want base terrain to be gravel. There we go. Then when we hit generate, you can see that we've got the dirt here, but it looks like we're already at elevation 5. So what if we... Yeah, this is not quite what we want. So we'll just do space and other terrain types of 1. We'll do space and other terrain types of 1 here. So it will essentially space it 1 away from everything instead of trying to control it via heights. Because it looks like we're sort of at our limit for height. Gonna not save that. It's 1. Let's give it a little bit more, actually. I think it was working, but having that being only a thickness of 1 is... There we go. Hard to see. So now, as you can see, this is the proper elevation, but it's spaced 2 away from this road terrain here. So this is gravel, this is road. They're both mixed with rock somehow, but now we got dirt on the very top. So now I want to mask some gravel over this dirt. It actually doesn't even have to be dirt. It could be quicksand or desert or something. I kind of like that idea better. So we'll come back here and we'll just say desert. so it's kind of sandy. Okay, or we could use quicksand if we didn't really like the dunes as much. Quicksand is a little bit wider. So let's look at our terrains here, and quicksand actually is predefined. DLC should be anyway. But it is unbuildable is the main thing. It's kind of interesting. Okay, where is the quicksand? There we go. It's number 46. So we'll just type in quicksand because we know it's predefined. So we'll create terrain DLC quicksand. Okay. All right, so that's a little bit better, I think. So now we've got a layer of quicksand on the top. Of course, there are no town centers because you can't build on quicksand. So now on top of this, we're going to do another layering. Don't worry if you can't quite get the layering, the way that I have it. It's not that important. It's just cosmetic. So now we're going to create another terrain. We're going to put gravel back. We're going to do no space into other terrain types, and we are literally just going to put terrain mask 2. And we're going to put this gravel underneath all this quicksand that we've made. So we have DLC quicksand. Okay. And so all that we're doing with this quicksand is we're just putting gravel underneath it. T-Bomber is taking some artistic liberties. Yeah, whatever you think looks the best. You don't have to follow everything that tech does. Okay? So I just tried to transition this rock into like sandy and gravelly surface at the top here. Kind of like that. Dirt mud would be cooler. This is Greece, the Emu Warrior. There's not much. Let me show you. Let's look at some pictures of the Greek coastline. Okay, White Cliff. I don't see any mud anywhere. No mud. No mud. Oh, look at that. No mud. Oh, look at that. No mud. No mud and no mud. No mud. No mud. Still no mud. Just rocks. Rocks and scrubs. It's actually a pretty sharp transition, but it's mostly just dirt and sand. Grass. There's just not enough moisture there for it to be mud. It's kind of almost like a desert. It's sort of cool. All right, anyway. Trust me, mud would look better. Emu Warrior, I stopped trusting you the moment you backstabbed me in a community game. I thought I was perfectly safe being your ally. Boy, was I wrong. All right. So we got this gravel down here, and we could sort of transition that into dirt at this point. So we could, copy another one of these down there. We're dealing with gravel here, so we could create terrain dirt. Okay, and the base terrain is going to be gravel, and the terrain mask is going to be 2. We could do space and other terrain types. And we could set that equal to like 2. And then it will just become dirt on top of gravel, kind of like that. Except we need a little bit larger of a spacing to other terrain types. So let's set it equal to 4. All right, there we go. So as you can see, it starts out a little bit lighter here. I don't know, maybe you don't think that looks too great. There might be some way to darken it a bit. But that's sort of what I have for now. We could put just the DLC dry grass on it directly. But maybe that quicksand was a mistake. Maybe we need a different terrain in here. Well, who knows. Let's get rid of the quicksand layer for now. And we'll just do dirt. We can always pretty it up later. Oh. Space and other terrain types. Terrain dirt on top of the gravel. Let's get rid of that. Let's go back to our baseline. Quicksand / beach is pretty cool. Okay, so this is gravel with the rock on it. And then be careful about using beach, T-Bomber. There's a specific land type beach that you can use. If you're going to use land type beach, use where is it? Don't use the traditional beach. Use beach non-navigable right here, number 79 through 82. So these are all versions of what is normally beach. That's just a standard land terrain. So ships can't pass over this. It looks like the traditional beach. All the details are in here. You can build on it, but ships cannot pass across it. What was the gravel 70 thing? So up here, T-Bomber, we have defined gravel as number 70, and this is necessary for the scripting engine to recognize what gravel looks like. If this is not defined properly, it won't work. It will fail to generate. It'll make some messed up looking thingy. Okay. I'm actually gonna probably just do dirt on top of this, I think. So let's copy this. We're going to create terrain dirt. And we are on gravel now. Height limits are going to be 5 to 5. Space and other terrain types. Oops. Is going to be 2. And terrain mask is going to be 2. And we're going to put dirt underneath this instead. Yeah, just like that. And we don't even necessarily have to do it this way. You know, if we don't want this uniform layer, we can always go back over here to like land percent, and we could say 10% land. 10% of the land that's available to convert that. And then it'll do something like this where it'll be sort of patchy, which is kind of fun too, because you wouldn't expect it to be completely uniform. Yeah, just stop me, T-Bomber, if I go too fast or if you have any questions. Okay, so that is 20. Let's give it a little bit more. About 30. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at these patches of dirt. Okay, let's do 40. Okay, and anything that remains we could actually start putting DLC dry grass down on. What I'm interested in though is that we don't seem to have very large patches. It's got kind of smallish patches of dirt here, which is weird because we should have 9320 clumps and we should be setting the scale by the size. Oh, we want to set scale by groups. Okay, that would be probably part of the reason. No, maybe not. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with this, though. I think that's the main point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so let's create another terrain in DLC Drygrass now. And let's do terrain mask 2, and we're going to try to do 100%, so we'll clear up the rest of that. Space and other terrain types, though, we're going to say 4. And let's see how that may not work, actually, because it'll be avoiding, yeah, it'll be avoiding everything else. So we're just going to have to get rid of this line here. Okay, so we've got a kind of a mixture of gravel and dry grass up here, and I actually don't think I want the gravel on top of the dry grass, so let's get rid of that terrain mask and let's just replace it outright. There we go. So we got the standard grass here, and it would have been nice to make it avoid the edge of the cliff. I'm just trying to think. It may still be possible to do that. Yeah, so let's remove the space and other terrain types for this other one. Let's move that down to 1. Or just get rid of it, actually, so that it is non-discriminate in where it shows up. So I want this dirt to be able to come up to the edge. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got the dirt plus the gravel around here. We've got all kinds of like snaky grass through that. That looks all good and everything. And now let's mask this finally. Let us come down here, and this is important. And we're going to create one final command. And we're going to create dirt on the DLC Drygrass. Create terrain, dirt. And there's all kinds of terrains you can play with. Again, on base terrain, DLC Drygrass. And we're going to go 100% and in these height limits, and we're going to do terrain mask 2. So that we're basically putting dirt underneath this DLC Drygrass, and we're kind of bringing it all together. All right, there we go. So as you can see, we've got patches of grass, we've got patches of gravel on this dirt. Of course, and of course we have the player town centers as well. So even though it looks like 3 different terrain types or something, it's actually just one on the top, and it's just dirt. Okay. Let's look at it on a different size, maybe large size with 8 players, and see how we are. Similar concepts, right? Big old patches. I don't like this too much, though. But it happens. The important thing is we've got these big old bodies of water here. Kind of like these nooks or lakes in the corners. Be cool to put some islands out there. We could definitely do that if we wanted to later. Okay. Let's come back in here. And We've got large numbers of clumps everywhere. It's not too important. I'm not going to address it now. I was just thinking it would be cool if we had them broken into smaller clump sizes, but it's fine. It's getting late. So now, let us create terrain, and we're going to create some Mediterranean forest. But because I don't know how to spell Mediterranean forest, we're going to use the number. So we're going to define the constant here. All right, and this is important, T-Bomber, so make sure you do this. And we're gonna call it MF for Mediterranean forest. Okay. And we want terrains, and we want to go find Mediterranean. Mediterranean. There we go. Mediterranean forest, and it is number 88. And I don't want to try to spell that in here. So we're going to use number 88. Okay. And let's also check to see if there's bush forest. And it looks like there is. And that's kind of right next to it. And then we also have reed forest. So I want to define all types of these forests because we're going to have mixed forest in our maps. If there is one thing that you need to know about random map scripting, it is that if you mix your forests, it's so easy to do and it makes your random map scripts look amazing. Okay, T-Bomber, so far so good. That's encouraging. So let us decline a couple, or not decline, but declare a couple more of these. And we're gonna have like FB for forest bush, and that's gonna be 89. And then we're gonna have another constant for our F, which is the reed forest, and that's going to be 91. We're gonna skip over 90 because we don't need it. Tech, you don't even see the trees; they're just green cubes. Well, they're trees in the scenario editor when I'm doing random map scripting, or at least they're supposed to be. I left it off for this. But actually, you know what? Let's include the reed forest. Well, there aren't too many reeds. We'll do it anyway. So we'll do constant, and we're gonna have BF, which is beech forest. That's what we're gonna call it. It's gonna be 90. Okay. So I guess first things first, right? Let's give ourselves some beech forest. And it's probably going to be a very small. It's going to be a very small number. So let's come down here and we'll copy this. And this is all, remember, this is all just to get beech forest. And we're going to create terrain BF for beech forest. And the base terrain is we're going to put it on top of water. We're going to replace some tiles of water with this. The land percent is going to be 1%. The number of clumps is going to be 9320. Clumping factor we're going to get rid of. We don't need that. Set scale by size. Height limits, we're going to get rid of that because the water is all in one height, so it's kind of redundant. And we do not want a terrain mask. Okay, this is beech forest. So we got that all saved up. Let's see what happens. Interesting. It was actually quite reasonable. What the heck? That's way more reasonable than it's supposed to be. I was not expecting it to do that, you guys. Thought we were going to have to go fight with it. BF equals bird fan. Well, if bird fan were here, he would approve of this anyway. Okay. Well, I don't really know what I did, but it shouldn't work. Base terrain is water. So it's trying to put this beech forest on the water. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that worked, but it did. So we'll just kind of leave it alone. I was going to put little islands out in here, but it's fine. Whatever. Whatever. It's getting late. I want to go to bed, and I want to get this as close to finished as we can. Okay, so now to continue with this Mediterranean look, we're going to create a terrain, and it's going to be Mediterranean forest. And we're going to use a base terrain of dirt. Land percent is going to be, let's say, 2 or maybe 10. 10% Mediterranean forest. Number of clumps, 9320. Oh! Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Set scale by size, it's all fine. Alright, let's generate this and see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, we've generated lots of little Mediterranean forests here, but there's a problem. Does anybody notice something that's wrong with this, with the setup, the way that we have it so far? What's the matter here? Why isn't this acceptable? Anybody know? Smokey, you consider yourself a big deal. Why don't you tell us what's wrong with this map? Why is this illegal? This is illegal because look at this. You can't have this forest this close to your town center. That's silly. That's silly, and you may not even be able to see what you're working on down here. This is too close. How are you supposed to scout rush somebody with a town center like this? You can't. His woodline's right next to his town center. Your scouts will all get shot. So, to rectify that situation, we need to add a command line here. Set avoid player start areas. And we'll specify a distance of 13, which happens to be the default. So now when we run it, these Mediterranean forests will avoid the player towns appropriately. So now you can actually like go up and try to build a meaningful lumber camp here. Now I think these Mediterranean forests should be a little bit bigger, right? These are kind of small forests. So we probably want to decrease the number of clumps to something more reasonable for an 8-player map size in this case. Let's say 40. 40 clumps. Okay, that's a little better. The clumps are quite large, and they're scattered across the map. Now, there's some more advanced techniques. There's some more advanced techniques for actually like putting down a certain number of forests per player. Like this player only got 2 forests here, but I'm not going to get into that tonight because I think that this is approximately sufficient. I think that this will work for now. But that is definitely something that we could talk about if anybody wants to learn how to do that in the future. But you can see that it does a decent job. You know, all that extra effort does not get you very, very much. So we've got these Mediterranean forests here, and they're decently sized forests. We might decrease the land percentage slightly, maybe decrease it to 8. So we don't want the map to be too closed. Now, if we wanted to do some kind of land madness thing, we could put down rock and then put down the forests on top of it so that you couldn't wall your wood lines. That would be pretty wild. But I think that this is sufficient for now. what we could do is we could actually just make sure that there are lots of neutral resources outside of your immediate, initial set of forests here. The other thing that we could do to give the players the feeling that they're very vulnerable and exposed is we could create terrain bush forest. Okay, so you get bushes instead of trees. No, that's beech forest. Oh, did I use the same consonant? That would be just like me. Yes. Bush forest is number 90. Forest bush, aha, is 89. So we want forest bush. Although this does look kind of cool too. So forest bush, where is it? Forest bush. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So we just got some standard bushes here. It's kind of like a little bit of a scrubland, if you will. And then we could put in some smaller Italian pines around that. So, for example, we could then come in and say that we want to create terrain and we want to do Mediterranean forest now. And we don't need to avoid player start areas because we're going to be replacing this forest bush with Mediterranean forest. We're only going to replace about 8% or 4%, about half of that. But we will specify as many clumps as we can. 9320, which is kind of the maximum. And save. And now we should see lots of Italian pines and stuff like that mixed in with these bushes, which is indeed the case. So, bam, it's like rocket fuel for the good looks of your random map script. Okay? And now let's put down some DLC rock just to be a nuisance everywhere. Make walling awkward. Walling and building awkward. So let us create terrain now. And we'll do DLC rock. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just kind of something that I'm doing just to give the map an interesting twist. Land percent 4. And everything else there should be pretty good. And there's DLC rocks scattered literally everywhere. So that's obviously a big pain in the butt. And if it's too close together, you can't really boom either. Like, consider looking at this. If somebody got to the Castle Age and wanted to boom, well, let's see, where's the town center here? You literally cannot build a town center. The rock is everywhere. Oh, we found a spot. Well, good for us. That might be the only one, though. All right, there's another one right there. So it makes it very difficult to boom. So what if we decrease the land percent to like 2? See what happens. It's still quite tightly packed. Land percent 1. And I bet it's still not gonna... Yeah, it's still too close together. Well, shoot. It would be a fun idea. We could actually make it take less than 1%, but it's probably not worth the effort for now. Just know it's hard to build additional town centers for now. Players would really struggle with that. And if your town center If your initial town center is destroyed, you will be in trouble. So what we could do, though, is we can tell it to avoid. This might be worthwhile. Instead of DLC rock, we could put down reed forest, land percent 1, and base terrain dirt. And let's see how that looks. Oh, we need to tell it to set avoid player start areas. And let's have it avoid player start areas by 20. These little reeds. And this would make castle dropping very difficult on this map. And really building any forward military production buildings would be quite difficult to do on this map. This gives you kind of a feel for how this could work. We could even do spacing other terrain types of like 2. To make sure that they avoid the Italian forests all proper, which they do now. So that should facilitate the production of a town center. Yeah, for the most part, they can. And the other thing that we could do too is we could reduce the number of clumps here. So we could have like 40 clumps or something, and that should make them bigger clumps with the reeds in them. Yeah, so they take up they're like 4 now. So just small clumps here. And this way it isn't as inhibitive about where you can and cannot build castles as well. But it adds a nice aesthetic touch, I think, to the map. But we could even replace those with, again, we could replace those with bushes if we wanted. Or more Italian pines. So we could come down here. We could say create terrain, forest bush, base terrain, reed forest, land percent 1, number of clumps 9320, and something like that. Now this might replace all of them because, yeah, it just replaces all of them because we can't go less than land percent 1. So we would have to bump this up to land percent 2 and maybe double the number of clumps here, so that approximately half of that is reeds and half of it is bush, as you can see. So a little bit of scrub land up here. All right, let's add some objects in, and I think we'll call it a night here. Let's just show you how to do the objects is the most important thing. So there is a predefined object that I want to invoke now. Okay. So create object DLC Savannah grass. Oops. And we are going to set Gaia object only. And we are going to do number of objects 1. If you don't specify number of objects, though, the default is going to be 1. Number of groups 9320. Set scaling by groups. I think. I don't know. Let's see. Let's check the guide to make sure. I have an automated system for doing this, so I've forgotten a lot of these terms exactly. Set scaling to map size is what we want. The terminology is different, so you have to be careful. Number, terrain to place on, dirt. All right. That doesn't look like it did anything. Let's hope it didn't do anything. We didn't actually delete something. Haha! So as you can see, we have failed to generate the savanna grass. And because it doesn't understand what the input is, it's just putting town centers instead, which is not what we want. So let's go and do it right and see what that constant actually is. Man. Where are we? Where are we? Here we go. Okay. So DLC Savannah. Oh, it's Savannah Patch. Okay. Well, no wonder it didn't get it right. Yeah. How's this for a map, T-Bomber? Does this look like fun? Okay. As you can see, the ground is littered with infinite numbers of savanna patches. That's too many. That will lag the game out. So we forgot something that's very important, which is we need to space these. So we're going to do temp min distance group placement. TC nothing. And we're going to make that equal to 4. So these savanna patches will be spaced 4 tiles apart from each other. Okay, there we go. So there's all kinds of different tree eye candies that you can put in there. So I'll do another one just to give you another example. So we could create another object. We'll copy all of this stuff down so we don't have to retype it all. But we're going to do DLC rock. And we only need one object. We can actually delete this. And it's going to be set guy object only, number of groups 9320. And the terrain to place on is going to be beach. And the temp min distance group placement is going to be 8. And we're going to have avoid forest zone. So we don't want it to be too close to these reeds. And let's see here. I believe avoid forest zone is correct. Oh, these are the objects. We want the guide. Avoid forest zone by n. Yep. So we're going to avoid forest zone by 2. No, more than that. By like 4. Make sure that people can get their docs up just fine. Okay. So instead of DLC rock, we have cataphract. So what's going on there? Oh, we just want rock, not DLC rock. DLC rock is the name of the terrain. Rock is the name of the object. Okay. So there we go. So we got some random rocks now along our beach, as you can see. And we could put them out in the ocean too, if we really, really wanted to. Okay, so shorefish time, perhaps. Or let's do something, let me rephrase that. Let's do something a little bit more advanced, I would say. We've got a little bit more time, I guess. Let's, could help you out, you guys out with the shorefish later. We could try it. So let's create ourselves another object here. And let's create ourselves some shorefish. And all the same constants, right? We want to place them on the beach. Oops. We want to place them on the beach, and we want them to have approximately this spacing, except instead of avoiding forest zone, we're going to say place on forest zone, so that they are right next to the reeds. Actually, let's just not place them in general. Just try placing them. See what happens. Maybe we'll have them avoid forest zone by like 2. That's fine. All right, so let's see about that. Look at that. The shorefish, well, they're not here. The shorefish are not present. Well, what happened? Well, let's check our constants. Shorefish. Oh yeah, shorefish is one of the originals. It's number 69. So shorefish exist. The reason that it's not placing them is because beach is technically an illegal terrain for shorefish. Shorefish are not allowed to be placed on beaches. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to place the shorefish as a second object for an object that can be placed on beaches. So, pay attention. We're going to create an object called onGrid. And then we're going to place the shorefish as a second object to that. Shorefish. Then we're going to come up here to the top, and we're going to define our onGrid placeholder. So, go constant onGrid. Okay, and the number for that is going to be, I believe it's 1613. Let's check. Invisible blocks terrain from spawning decorative plants, can be used as an on-grid placeholder. There we go. It's 1613. Okay, so it'll put this 1613 down, which is invisible. Oops. And then it'll put the shorefish on top of that as a second object. Let's try it. All right, bam. As you can see, we now get the shorefish. Okay, excellent. We got shorefish all around, too. What about just regular fish, though? What about just like deep fish? Well, no problem. We can do that, too. So what kind of fish do you want here? I'm thinking maybe salmon would probably be a good bet. I don't know. Do salmon live in Greece? Maybe snapper? Nah, snapper are a tropical fish. So we'll come back down here to objects. And again, we'll copy a lot of stuff from our previous object. And we are going to create object. And we are going to do salmon. Set guy object only. Number of groups, lots. Temp min distance group placement to 8. We could have them avoid forest zone. We don't need a second object. We probably don't need avoid forest zone either. And we don't need a terrain to place them on because by default they want to be placed on water. And then let's see what we have to do with the fish here. So there's this additional rule to get the fish to avoid beaches where we basically, let's say, where is it? Override actor area radius if required. Ouch, I've never seen that one before. Set. Avoid cliff zone, no. Circular placement, no. Avoid all actor areas. Avoid override actor area radius if required. No. I can't find it. Well, we'll just hope that it's not too bad. Okay, let's see. So unfortunately, I believe that this salmon can be reached by fishermen that are standing at the edge, which is unacceptable. So we are going to need to add that command line in there. There is some fish, but there's actually not very much fish. But Emu Warrior would probably still take this fish anyway. Even if there was like one fish out here, he would build the dock. So it's got to be in here somewhere. Come on. Number of objects, number of groups, group variants, min connecting tiles, resource delta, second object, scaling, set guy object only, tight grouping, loose grouping, layer to place on. Oh, that's not right. We could kind of do it that way, though, if we really wanted to. Ignore terrain restrictions, avoid cliff zone. Actor area N. Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, we'll solve it a different way. So let's come back up here to our script. And we're placing this salmon on water, right? So let us add something a little bit to that water. Let us add let's change this to DLC water 5, which is slightly lighter than the traditional water. So we hit generate and it should look clearer and brighter. See how that looks a little bit lighter than our other water here? Now let us layer some terrain on top of that. So we'll copy this and we'll put it directly below. And we'll say create terrain, and this is just going to be water. And the base terrain will be DLC water 5. And the space and other terrain types, this is important, is going to be 3. And land percent might be, I don't know, like 4% or something like that. And set scale by size is fine, but the important thing is it's going to be terrain mask 2. So that the game now sees water as the actual terrain here. At least 4 away. Okay. It should be further than that, though. Hold on. Let's get rid of this clumping factor. And let's increase the spacing of other terrain types to 2. Oh. Clumping factor. Let's get rid of this clumping factor. And spacing other terrain types of like 5 maybe. And the reeds are not spawning properly either. I don't Hey, Seabass, welcome back. We're just finishing up the map. Let's come down here. Maybe space and other terrain types needs to be put down here somewhere. I'd be surprised. Order doesn't... It's been my experience that order hasn't really mattered. Yeah. Well, no matter. Let us just create terrain mask 1 out of that, and whatever. It's fine. So let's do one more thing. Let's decrease the land percent to 1 here, and we'll see if that helps. No, not really, no. All right. So we will terrain mask 1 it, so it's seen as the same type of thing. Now, where's the reed forest going? Let's see. Okay. BF, which is bush forest, beach forest maybe, base terrain water. Base terrain should be beach. Oh, whatever. I don't think the reeds look particularly good anyway. It's coming close to midnight, so we'll get rid of this for now. So we'll save that. What we'll do, though, is we will create objects. So we don't want the salmon to be too close. So what we'll do is we'll create object on grid, and we'll create it on this terrain type beach. Temp min distance group placement is going to be 1, space between them, and then we will give them an actor area. And we'll call them actor area 1 and then actor area radius of, well, let's say 2. So actually, let's make these flag for now, so I can illustrate what's going on. So we're going to have the salmon avoid actor area 1. Avoid. It's a brute force way of doing it. Oh, the flags. Okay, the flags should definitely be placed on beach. What the hell is going on? This isn't all beach. Oh, shoot. Terrain to place on. Terrain to place on. Remember I told you guys about like it ignoring something that didn't make sense in that context? All right, so there you go. So we got this ring of flags around. It's going to put the fish in. And the fish must avoid these flags by 2 tiles. And because the flags are all along the beach terrain, it means that the villagers cannot reach them. So now we can make those flags invisible again now that we see how they're working. Okay. And you know what we actually could do too is we could make this on grid. And we could even come up here to like the very beginning. And we could create object, and we could actually just put down tree reed. So we could put that read down directly as an object. We could even create on grid. Now it would be an object, it wouldn't be a terrain. And terrain to place on would be beach. And temp min distance group placement would be 8. And it would still count as a forest zone though, because it's still a tree object. And then we will do second object tree read, and we'll place that. So let's come up to the top here, and we will define the tree read. And that object is tree reads. It only has 50 wood though, but it's 1350. Okay. So now we run that, and bam, we got our tree reads back. Except they're objects now, so you could chop them to get them out of the way if you wanted. Alright, so we basically have like the eye candy and the fish down. We just have to do the player assigned objects at this point. So, first things first, I like to do anyway. Let's come down here. And we will create object some tree read, and we will set 4 groups, and we will do set Gaia object only, but also set place for every player. And we will do 5 groups, and we will not scale them now. We will do a temp min distance group placement of 3. And now we will min distance to players of 5 and max distance to players of 8. And we will set circular placement. So these are now player assigned straggler trees. And as you can see, here they are. We got the reeds up here. We could make them bushes if we wanted them to stand out a little bit better. There is an object for that as well. Okay, so that's good. And they're arranged in an approximately circular pattern. We might allow them to be a little bit further away, but I think that's good for now. Okay, so now I'm going to create object villager. We do not need to specify a number of groups or a number of objects. We don't even need, well, we'll specify a temp min distance group placement anyway. And this is not going to be a Gaia object, so let's get rid of that. And we'll hit generate. So the player starts out with some villagers around their town center. So the villagers are by default in groups of 3. And they have the same type of avoidance here as the reeds. So let's do this again. Create object scout. And temp min distance group placement doesn't need one because we're only making one of him. And we'll push him a little bit further away. We'll have him be like 7 to 9 tiles away from the town center. And there's only one of him again, so we don't need set circular placement. Although we'll keep it there anyway, because maybe it'll affect it somehow. Okay, so there's the scout. And what if we wanted each player to start with a house? No problem. Create object, house. Set place for every player. And that's going to be 7 to 9. Oh, we want these reeds to have a resource delta of 50. So they have extra wood in them, because they by default only have 50 wood. So this will give them 100. And then we're going to have this avoid forest zone, because we don't want this to be too close to people's... Or maybe it's forest zone avoidance, if I remember correctly. Avoid forest zone, nope. Avoid forest zone by 4. Okay, so this player got a house here. And this player got a house too. We could kind of increase this this window, this tolerance, if you will, to make it far more likely that it won't fail to generate a house. Because if there's no valid spot, it just won't place the house. And, well, that's no good, right? Okay, what else? Well, we could place gold. That would probably be the next step. Sheep, actually, would be even better. Okay, so it's going to do create object sheep. Set place for every player. Number of objects. 4. Number of groups is just going to be 1, so I don't specify that. And these sheep are going to be between 7 and 10, I think is fine. They don't. We can have them avoid forest zone by 2. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to add that. And bam, there's some sheep. Oh, we need to specify the grouping type for these sheep, though. Otherwise, they are going to be everywhere. So, loose grouping. Maybe it's set loose grouping. Let's check. Yeah, it's set loose grouping. I knew it. Okay, there you go. 4 sheep. I do feel that they should be avoiding the town center by a little bit more, though. It seems like it's too close. Maybe not. So it doesn't really matter too much. We could tightly group them, too, if that looked awkward. There you go. And Tech has to tightly group his stuff because, well, because actor areas are kind of buggy like that. Okay, now we can find a list of all the objects that we want to put in this random map scripting guide, actually. It gives us, Zetnus went up and he counted and he figured out how many of the different things are placed, standard starting resources, if you will. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Let's see if I can find it. The standard resources. Here we go. Standard units and resources. So forage bushes, gold mines, etc. So we could create object forage now, for instance. Set place for every player. Set Gaia object only. And I'm actually going to upload the script to the video after this so that folks can tweak around with however they want. This is an open source type of script. Number of objects 6. These will be tightly grouped, and these are going to be probably between, what does this guide say? They're at least 10 tiles away. So min distance to players is going to be 10. Max distance to players is going to be 14. And we'll have them avoid force some by 2. And we will give them a min distance group placement, which is a very powerful attribute. So be careful when you use this. So this says right here that no other object henceforth placed on this map shall be within 4 tiles of these berries. That's what that means. So in text program, I just use actor areas, and I create a bazillion actor areas, and it's all automated and everything like that. But they didn't have that back when this was first developed. So they had something very simple. But it can mean that if there's enough of these overlapping avoidance radii, stuff just doesn't get placed, and you don't understand why. So we'll save it. Generate. Okay, and now we've got some berries here. Okay, so that's good. And we could do the same thing with gold. Create object gold. Number of objects 7 tiles. And according to Zetness, the gold needs to be at least 10 tiles away. So again, 10 to 14. And we'll have everything else avoided by 4. So this gold is actually kind of close to the berries. Maybe we need a bigger avoidance distance for the berries. Maybe make stuff avoid the berries by 8. And the gold by 8. But again, it gets dangerous. Okay. Looks a little bit more civilized there. Create object boar. These are Gaia object only as well. We don't need a number of objects because it's only 1. And these boar are something like 14 to 20 tiles away, I think. Let's see what Zetness says. At least 16 tiles away. Alright, so 16 to 20. Min distance group placement is going to be, let's have these boar, yeah, I think 8 is fine. And then we're also going to have temp min distance group placement. Actually, min distance group placement should be fine. It should cover both of the boars just fine. Okay, so here's a boar. And where's the other boar? The other boar cannot be spawned. There is no place he can spawn that satisfies the requirements. So this is why I said you got to be careful. Because it's very convenient to do min distance placement, but it's a very powerful attribute. So, actually, wait a second. No, I lied. Here I was lecturing you. We need to, number of groups is 2. So we need to tell it to do 2 groups of these boar. Here's 1, and where's the other boar? Maybe my original point stands. No, here's the other one. Okay. So they got both of those boar. That's good. And now we can have more sheep. The sheep are, remember, they're going to be avoiding these boars by 8. Okay, so these sheep, we're going to have number of objects 2, number of groups 2, and we are going to have these, we're going to have them set Gaia object only, so that they don't start the game under control of the players. And these sheep need to be 14 to 24 tiles away. 14, 24, and again we're going to give them maybe temp min distance group or min distance group placement of only 4 this time. Okay. Could actually loosely group these sheep too. Here you go though. So there's some sheep, and then where are the other sheep? There they are. So these sheep are a little bit forward. Okay. And we'll do stone next. The stone is going to be, I think, it's like, let's check the main stone. Find stone mines at least 12 tiles away. So they are something like 12 to 18. And there are 5 of them. They're tightly grouped. Let's have these sheep be loosely grouped. Set loose grouping. Okay. I would avoid the forest by a certain amount. So stone is here. It's got its gold. Berries. Sheep. Sheep. More sheep. Okay, but that's the idea. If we wanted to do neutral resources, if we wanted to have like neutral golds scattered across the map, then we could just basically take our existing gold, hit copy, and paste it here, remove set place for every player. Maybe we make the number of objects equal to 2, so they're piles of 2, tightly grouped, and the min distance to players is 30, and the max distance to players is non-existent. And then we'll have number of groups be 9320. Set scaling to map size. Not that it matters too much. Set scaling to map size, yes. Okay. And we will space these 16 tiles apart as long as they're 30 tiles away from the players. We don't care. So this will probably fill the map up with gold. But as you can see, here are all the golds now. They don't have any other sorts of avoidances associated with them. If we wanted to have a min distance group placement associated with these golds so that other things always avoided them by a certain amount, we want to make sure that we put down all of our player objects first, just to make sure that these golds don't interfere with them. But anyway, you could do the same thing with forage, with stone. You could do eye candy. There's thousands of different objects. You could have undomesticated equines out here. So hopefully you guys have learned something. Hopefully you were entertained. You found this valuable. But like you could play on this right now, and all it took was 4 hours basically. Not quite 4 hours, I guess, but you get the idea. This is a very simple map script. It's essentially 4 lakes, Greek style. We did some terrain masking. We showed you how to make forests and have them avoid player lands. We showed you how to do the objects. We showed you how to be careful with like the land parameters. We showed you even how to do the placeholders. We showed you how to get the fish to avoid the edge of the map. So I feel like there's a lot of value to tonight's session. We didn't break out the tech tools. This isn't a super advanced map. It is pretty simple, but you know it would work. It would work in a competition. So be interested to see if they would dock the center or if they dock these outside ponds. They'd probably dock the outside first because it's safer, and then maybe they'd move in toward the center. I don't really know. Maybe the center doesn't add much at all. And that's fine. That's part of the map design. But the important thing is we got the technical stuff figured out. And of course we made it look Tech Chariot-like with all this extra useless eye candy. So thanks everybody for tuning in. It's late. I'm tired. Before I end the stream, I want to know if either of the guys have any questions. I'm going to update this video description to contain the script file, like I said. And if you're not in the Discord, join the Discord. You can join the Random Map Scripting Discord. And there are a lot of smart people in there that are very good at using the random map scripting tools, or not tools, but using the random map scripting engine like this, the way that it was originally intended. And then I do some other advanced stuff. I have advanced object and land auto programming, basically, that compiles the list of all of that for me. So, oh, that's great news, T-Bomber. When are we going to try it? I would love to try your map, T-Bomber. So we'll either join either Discord. If you join the Viridarks Discord, I'm more likely to see it. And people are more likely to play it. But if you join the random map scripting server, depending on what you're working on, they're probably more likely to be able to help you. I recommend both. I mean, why not? But it's totally up to you. Either way, I'm going to upload the script, so you'll have it as a basis for questions. But I really hope this helps you guys. It's a long video. There's a lot of ums and I don't knows in there, but we got something that's playable, something that looks like ancient Greece. You know, you could polish it up for a little while longer, and it could be a perfect tournament map. So, thanks everybody for tuning in. It's it's a little after 12:20 in the morning for me, so I'm gonna head out. But love all of you guys. Thank you for being here, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.